Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Golden, and this is Author Talks Live. We are streaming live right now to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Audience members, please send in comments and questions. We'll be featuring those later on in the episode, and I'm so excited for today's show. Let me introduce you to my very special guest, Katty Douraghy. And Katty is the author of the unforgettable memoir, The Butterfly Years. Katty spent 3 years on a journey of grief and mourning that led her to publish her story. It's a raw and vulnerable memoir that recounts her experiences with the death of 6 family members, including her parents and step-parents, all within a short span of time. Aside from being an author, Katty is the president of Artisan Creative, a staffing and recruitment agency focusing on digital, creative, and marketing talent. And Katty is also a group facilitator working with entrepreneurs on team building and collaboration. We actually met when I spoke at one of her events for EO, which many of you are familiar with. So that's we quickly formed a bond, and I really appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much, Katty. Welcome.
Thank you, Kara. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So your book, The Butterfly Years, is I read it and it's incredible. I really wanted you to come on and talk a little bit more about it. It's really just putting pen to paper and talking about your own experiences of challenging times. Talk to me a little bit about why you decided to write it.
I wrote it because I had some unfinished conversations that I hadn't had a chance to have. And when I first started writing it, one of our mutual friends, Winnie Hart, is actually the one that when my mom had first passed away, she said, go write to her. And that was the genesis of this book. And very similar to you writing Undaunted, where you were journaling all along, a lot of what is in this story is things that I had just been writing to my parents and to my cousin and everybody else who had passed, because I felt that I didn't get a chance to say goodbye properly. And I didn't get a chance to, in my mind, at least the stories that I had made up for myself, maybe apologize where I needed to, or if there were things that I regretted, I didn't have a chance to really say that to them. So that's where this came from, although it kind of turned out to be something different than what I had initially intended for it to be. Well, I wanted it to be like a self-help book for others.
Yeah.
And it really turned more into my story. I think somebody up there wanted to make sure that their story was being heard. That's kind of what happened with the book.
Well, I think that's a story of just starting, right? And trying to figure out, instead of actually thinking that it has to be one way, that's take these steps along the way that really allow you to start somewhere. And definitely I got a few tears in my eyes as I was reading your story, for sure. But you talk a lot about post-traumatic growth. What do you mean by that?
It's a term that I actually came across for the first time when I was reading Sheryl Sandberg's book, Option B. And in there, they talk about, Adam Grant was talking about, this thing called post-traumatic growth that I had never even heard about. And what I had realized, kind of just in my own journey, although there was so much darkness during those years that all the losses were happening, at the same time, I had just uncanny energy. I was saying yes to everything that I could. I just had my hands in everything. I was volunteering, I was growing. And I had a hard time reconciling, like, what was happening? Like, why did I have, like, I felt like I was coming out of my shell, out of a chrysalis, if you will, the whole butterfly theme. Until I read this word, this terminology, and I looked into it a little bit more. This is actually a phenomenon that many people who've gone through trauma experience, where because of the trauma, the lessons learned through the trauma, they actually do step forth and grow from it. And because of that, they allow and help others to grow in that process. For example, if somebody has lost a dear person to breast cancer. They may do fundraisings for breast cancer. They may do walks for breast cancer. They may do runs for those types of groups. So it's that philosophy that really made sense to me. And it helped me realize that what I was going through was actually normal. Because for a while I was like, should I be happy? Should I be traveling? Should I be dancing? Should I be growing? When I should technically be in this really dark space.
Yeah,
And kept
no,
now. So.
The other thing I really loved about your book, you were born in Iran and raised in England and then came to the US, and you talk about this in your book. How is grief and mourning different across the different cultures that shaped who you are?
Quite different. First of all, in the Iranian community, much of what is near and dear to our hearts, at least in my family, is behind closed doors. What we share with one another, but not necessarily with the outside world. And as you know, with the experiences we have with EO and YPO, we're trained to be open and be vulnerable and kind of just share, because our sharing enables other people to be able to learn and grow from it. So the first experience with that, especially with kind of comparing myself to my mother, who had also lost her mother. When she lost her mother, she wore black for a year. She, for a long time, till her dying days, she would always bring back that year of mourning for her. And when I was going through my mourning, I think I felt so dark inside anyway, that on the third or fourth day of her passing, I put a red shirt on because she liked me red. And I did so with guilt. I was like, should I be wearing red? Like, is this appropriate? Is this proper? And it's crazy stories we tell ourselves. So for me, it was like, okay, I must not be honoring properly because I didn't wear red for a whole year. I mean, I didn't wear black for a whole year. But that is not the case. The biggest lesson I've learned through this entire process is that we all mourn differently. We all go through that grieving process differently. And there is no judgment. There is no right or wrong. We just do whatever feels right for us to mourn when we need to.
I love that. That's really, really beautiful and so true. And obviously, so many of us went through challenges, in particular these last year and a half. And I think that I loved the idea of writing letters to people that maybe you lost during either this time or prior to this, because I think there are so many things that maybe you wanted to say and talk about, and it really helps you to move forward. You write a lot about hope in your book, and it seems to exist hand in hand with grief for you. Can you talk more about that and how you think about that today?
Thank you. I will. So two things really, I think, helped me in this journey. The first, and the reason why I called this book The Butterfly Years, is I read this proverb maybe about 5 years into the whole grief journey for myself. And the proverb says, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. And I held on to that mantra. There's that proverb as if it was my mantra. Like every time I felt I was going through a dark place, I would say, okay, just when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly. I even got myself a butterfly too, so that every time I felt that, I would just kind of rub this butterfly and feel the wings, that I was going to come out of this and that I was going to take flight. So that really resembled and resonated hope for me. The other piece that was a big turning point was another quote, a Maya Angelou quote that said, hope and fear cannot occupy the same space. Invite one to stay. And I invited hope. I could have wallowed in the depths, and I did for a long time. And I still, every once in a while, something does trigger me, and I do go back to that place. But it's really holding on to the hope that there is life after death, even though we may not feel it at the time because it's so dark. Life does go on. The sun does come out. The birds do continue chirping away, and the flowers will continue blooming. We just have to be able to embrace it and put ourselves in a position to be able to kind of put our arms around it and say, you know what, I am hurting, and that's okay. but life does go on. So those two
Yeah.
things were the huge, that's what hope means to me, is that desire to continue despite it all. Very much like undaunted, right?
I love that. We just had a message a few minutes ago from one of the viewers, Heather McCormick, said that she was ordering now, and I feel grief and loss for my grandmother. Oh my God, I say yes to everything now. So I think even you just sharing those statements about how you feel when you do go through grief, I think it's something that so many people just don't know how to process. But what other books have inspired you when you were writing The Butterfly Years?
Oh, several. So option B, definitely. There is another book by I believe she's a grief counselor, psychologist named Megan Devine. Her book is called It's Okay That You're Not Okay. And that was a great book that gave me license to be cool with not feeling good some days. And that was okay. And that I was going to go through that journey on my own. And there's another book, I'm drawing a blank of its name, by George Bonanno, The Other Side of Sadness. And he talks about the oscillation that we go through when we're going through grief. We are happy one moment and then in tears the next. Mm-hmm. We do remember something, we taste something, we smell something, and it does transport us back to that person. And sometimes that is just such a beautiful, loving, warm feeling. And sometimes it's just a feeling of loss. And that our emotions do go like waves and they do oscillate back and forth. And I think that also just gave me license to be like, you know what, it's okay. It's okay if I'm laughing and chatting with you now, and another moment that suddenly I have tears in my eyes. That's just a human emotion that we're going through. So those 3 books were super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I also just feel like just taking the time to go back and figure out what are the things that you learned from these people who were placed in your life, as sad as it may be. I think it's very helpful to be able to, move forward, especially when you were, are sort of taken by surprise that somebody is going. So I think that is definitely something that I think about a lot. So what resources do you recommend for people going through a loss?
So for myself personally, a couple of things that really helped me quite a bit was journaling every day, just really, continuing the conversations and just to get things out of my head. That journaling helped quite a bit. And meditation, absolutely, to be able to just be still with my thoughts and be okay with whatever was happening and take possession of that. I think both of those go into self-care and really remembering how we need to take care of ourselves, because there are so many other people in our lives that we have to take care of, and our businesses. We run a business, there is no such thing as taking bereavement time, or the business has to go on. So to be able to really take care of ourselves first is really critical. But there's so many resources out there. There's optionforhope.org is out there. Megan Devine has a writing course that's out there that's really wonderful. There's Center for Grief. Many resources online. I have had a few listed in the back of the book as well.
Great. Are you hearing some static there a minute ago?
I'm not, no.
No, I was hearing some static in there. Okay, must have been on my end. So, well, this is an incredible book, and I encourage everybody to read it. It's a very quick read, and I'm so proud of you, Katty, that you took the time to do this, because I think so many people are thinking about this and going through it. So to purchase The Butterfly Years, go to Amazon, and I'm sure other fine bookstores as well. And thank you again, Katty. Where do people find out more about you and follow you?
Thank you, Kara. Thank you for this opportunity. And I see an Iranian friend on the chat, so I just want to say salam out there to friends listening as well. They can find me on LinkedIn. /Katty is actually, I think I must be the first Katty who registered on LinkedIn, so they can find me on LinkedIn. The Butterfly Years book.com is also where they can find me, as well as Artisan Creative, which is my core business.
I love it. Great. Well, thanks everyone, and come visit me as well on LinkedIn and all other platforms at Kara Golden, and also check out The Kara Golden Show, which is a podcast every Monday and Wednesday on Apple and Spotify. And we'll see you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Kara.